Welcome friends to another r/prorevenge video. If you want to join me in getting revenge against the YouTube algorithm, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Asana Theist Films. Try to stiff me? Get a mechanic's lien. The job. I was starting my side business doing IT work for businesses and had some successful jobs for a few companies. I found word of mouth was the best way to gain new clients because entrepreneurs tend to network with other business owners. Tony was one such client who had heard I had done some work for a client and called to see if I could help. His company needs were to stop using a semi-accounting service that they'd been paying a percentage of their profit to process payments, purchase orders, and billings and receivables. He brought in an accountant to work a new product, pretty well known. They wanted a server to be accessible remotely, and they had already paid their ISP for a static IP for the server, but needed the actual server, redundancy UPS, and firewall device. I explained that for the product they had, we could probably set up a workstation and not a server, and it would run approximately $3,500 total and would be easy. But no, the owner wanted a full-blown server system with all the bells and whistles. He explained that he would likely be using the server for a CRM and a few other systems later on. The setup. Overall, the entire cost for the system would be $8,000, not including a few other services that needed annual billing, VPN/remote service. Equipment cost was $7,500, my labor charge was $500, UPS was $1,500, server was $3,800, and refurbed firewall, Cisco ASA, with programming by a third-party specialist was $1,800, and a spare rack was $400. I got my contract signed, put an order with my distributor, I have net 45 set up with them, and the firewall specialist, and got to work 1.5 weeks later when the firewall came in last. I finished the job in a single weekend and got everything up and going after a call to the ISP, whom did not like the firewall appliance I installed. For some reason they had to tweak things on their end and finally allow the traffic to go through once more. I confirmed function with the owner, whom verbally approved and was happy. The AH move. I sent my invoice promptly on Monday, left it, as in they had 1 week to pay. When I saw no reply or payment after 4 days, I messaged Tony and asked if they'd received my invoice. To my surprise, he replied the server was not working and proceeded to call me and tell me that the whole thing was a total waste of money and I should have never have done the job. I of course apologized and informed him I would be on the way to fix whatever the problem was. When I got there, they refused to let me in to see the server, claiming they had someone coming over to fix my mishaps. At that point, I informed them they still needed to pay for the equipment and we could maybe discuss my labor after I figure out what's going on. Tony refused to let me in and was pretty upset. The advice. At this time, I was pretty upset. 2.5 weeks had passed since I ordered my equipment and my distributor was needing to get paid within 45 days. I was getting very nervous and was thinking of taking it to small claims court until talking with a friend. He informed me I could pull a mechanic's lien. I informed him this was for IT, and he stated that mechanics liens where I live can actually be pulled on various industries, and IT was one of them. So I started the process to fill out and file a mechanics lien on Tony's company. Much to my surprise, there was no court date. All I needed to do was provide considerable proof to clerks and later to the constable. The revenge. After filling out the mechanics lien and serving him notice, I once again gave him the opportunity to pay the $8,000 owed. By this time, I'd spoken with my distributor and he switched my account from net 45 to net 90. He refused via phone call and got him on text. I took the information I had and went to the local constables, whom after seeing the mechanic's lien and proof, set up an appointment to meet me at the place of business to take back my server, UPS, and firewall. I went in on Tuesday, which I had learned was the day the accountant came in to start the week. Constable and I arrived at 7:30 a.m. right on opening time. At first, they refused entry until Tony came by and was informed I was enforcing my mechanic's lien and would be taking back my equipment. He immediately got riled up and claimed I couldn't take the equipment because a new person had replaced it all. The constable asked if I had serial numbers and models for the equipment, which I did. We go in and find my server, UPS, and firewall all in the exact same way I left it. The server showed it had been online for the entire time, no real changes were noticed, and as far as I could tell, no one had worked on it. Tony began to chuckle when I shut the server down and says, "How are you going to take the system when it's bolted to the ground? Bet you didn't think about that, did you, you idiot?" He did not realize that rack-mounted equipment is not permanently attached to the mount. I guess he thought he had me beat because it was all one system that you can't take apart and not something that was put together. His jaw dropped the moment I removed the server and loaded it onto the cart after removing a couple of bolts. He started panicking and started telling the constable that he would sue him if he didn't stop me. The constable simply stayed calm and ignored the owner. I guess after a bit, he informed Tony that he needed to get out of his face and step back. But when Tony refused to back down, the constable undid his holster's safety harness and he put his hand on his firearm. Tony's face was exquisite, full of fear and eventually a dawning sensation that this was going to happen one way or another. At first, I didn't understand why he was so riled up and now had a panicked face like his world had just collapsed until a bit later. I wrapped up my server, UPS, firewall, and left the rack. True to Tony's word, undoing the bolts proved difficult, too impossible with the tools I had, so I told Tony he could keep it for the new server he tries to set up. It didn't take more than 2 hours before I got a call from him stating that he'd talked to his attorney and he would be suing me for damages, and I would be going to jail for trespassing. I informed him he didn't pay for his equipment. The equipment was repoed, thus there was nothing to sue for. As far as trespassing, I was servicing a mechanic's lien with a law enforcement officer, thus it wasn't trespassing. He then starts hemming and hawing about how he needs to bill clients because he hasn't had revenue in a week, but his accountant can't do anything because she has no access to the accounting software and they have no copies. I informed him it wasn't my problem. I would not be giving access to the server nor data contained, and he should have paid for the equipment instead of trying to screw me over for $8,000. He then offered to pay me if I could install the server back the same day, but that only if I did it the same day. Otherwise, he'd find someone else. I informed him that our original contract was null and void. I would be returning the equipment to my distributor, but first I had to wipe the storage by DoD standards, which means 0% chance of recovering files unless he somehow had NSA level funds. He starts freaking out and resorts back to what he usually did, threatens me to lawsuit, make my life a living heck, etc. So I hang up on him and text him that I'm going to proceed to delete his data that evening and that I was no longer interested in working with him. More advice and the real revenge. He called me at least 50 times. I just silenced my phone and had to talk to my friend later that night, the friend who had given me the advice. He then tells me, why was I returning the equipment if I had the only copy that has everything from client names, contacts, phone numbers, billings, receivables, etc. He asked me how much revenue did the company generate. I informed him I was taking a wild guess, but it was somewhere in the ballpark of $58,000 to $59,000 for the last month. He laughs and tells me, why don't you charge them double the price to get his equipment back and have him pay you cash before you start? He was right. I was taking my petty revenge and walking out with an $1,800 in a firewall I had to pay in advance and a $500 unpaid labor charge. Why not take it a step further, get sweeter revenge, and get paid a fat stack of money? The following day, I messaged Tony. I apologized for the way I behaved yesterday. It wasn't professional. Unfortunately, your crap attitude and attempts to screw me over got the better of me. The server's not been wiped yet. I would like to reconsider a new arrangement so we can salvage this sour experience and turn it into sweet honey. Are you interested in working with me to get your equipment back? I must warn you, it will be extra since I would be doing double the work. Let me know. Tony immediately called me up, and immediately his jerk ways came up. I knew you would change your mind and come crawling back. Yes, I want everything back, but I'm only paying $8,050 and not a dime more. The $50 is me being generous to give you a second chance to do things right. I immediately informed him that I still have all the equipment, and in fact it would only take maybe 20 minutes to complete the job. However, I had a different idea in terms of the price. The new price was $15,000 to be paid cash. He immediately starts yelling and hollering. I keep talking and inform him he has 2 weeks to decide if being able to get paid by his clients was worth it. If not, the equipment was going back and that would be that. No hard feelings. I hang up. About 2 days later, I get a call from Tony informing me he agreed to the new arrangement to please set it up and install it ASAP. I tell him I can go Friday, but I would need to be paid $15,000 cash before I even unload a single bolt from my vehicle. He agreed. I could hear a lady talking, telling him he needs to get this resolved because they hadn't had revenue in nearly 2 weeks. This was on Wednesday. On Thursday, I get a call from his daughter, whom apparently is the accountant and the lady who was telling him to resolve it. She's cutting a check and needs to know my name. I inform her I would not be accepting checks, and I had told Tony specifically it would be in cash. She says okay and tells me if the amount of $12,000 was correct. I once again correct her and inform her the correct amount was $15,000 in cash. She said tiredly, "Of course it's $15,000. I'll go make the withdrawal and have the money ready tomorrow." Sure enough, Friday morning, true to her words, she and Tony were there with $15,000 cash. I counted it in front of her and Tony. She makes a comment saying that I was a lifesaver because they couldn't go back to the service they used before to get paid, and they urgently needed to get some POs sent out. I placed it in my vehicle, locked the glove box, and unloaded the equipment. True to my word, it took me 20 minutes to place the server, firewall, and UPS inside the rack mount. Connect the cables, power on the server, and ask them to test it out when they get a chance. If anything was wrong, to not contact me, and to have a good day. I actually had tested it out already before I left their server room. Despite my pettiness at times, I am still a professional. If you had a friend like that gave you such good advice all throughout a terribly tough situation like this, would you be taking them out to steak dinners and ball games and whatnot? If that was me, I would make that person the closest friend I could have. Let me know about you guys in the comments down below. Our next story is by Marky D. Sade, Taught a Doc a Lesson. 35 years ago, we installed the first electronic health record system in our hospital. Obviously very crude. It used a light pen to check selections on the screen and a keyboard. One of the doctors didn't want to learn how to use it and would write his orders on a piece of paper and then have me, the nurse, enter them. He would then have to just sign the list of orders online. This got to be very tiresome as it would have been faster for him and me if he just put them in himself like the other docs. But I got my revenge. The orders could be put as one long list with approval at the end, or they could be put in one order at a time, which required him signing each and every order. There were often 25 things in a list of orders. I chose the latter method. He was furious that he had to keep approving every one. After doing that twice, he caught on and started doing it himself. In a way, I don't blame the doctor for going this route for as long as they could, because for the doctor, it's just way less effort. Seemingly happily or still just doing it anyways, putting in all this stuff for me manually, and all I had to do was one last check at the very bottom, like, yep, that looks good. I'd probably coast along with that as long as I could. And our final story of the day is by TJ, I Control the Internet. I work at a cafe in a major city in the USA. We're not listed as an internet cafe. It's completely expected that ones come in, purchase something, and then proceed to use the internet. Technically, free Wi-Fi isn't free if you have to purchase something, so we're honest about it. Google Maps showed paid Wi-Fi, and our website explains it. Here's the revenge. The Wi-Fi went out during a very busy day. Most everyone's a regular customer and was very understanding, except for Karen. Now, Karen was inside sitting for 3 hours without patronizing the business. The moment the Wi-Fi went out, she was furious. I've never personally seen her before, and I'm there almost every day. Once I announced the Wi-Fi was down and I was working on the issue, she came right up to me and demanded to watch me try to fix it, while being generally insulting and insinuating it was being done to her personally on purpose. It wasn't. This continued for the next 20 minutes. Generally, I let most things slide. Not today, Satan. I'm not even supposed to be there working behind the counter. I'm covering. Also, I'm the manager. I run the internet here. I also specifically bought a router where I can limit or deny access to any device I choose. Most people name their computers and it's pretty easy to guess who is who, especially if you're using like a Lenovo. Once the internet came back, I guessed her MAC address and permanently blocked her computer from our network. And of course, she freaked. I, though, am an idiot base level employee though, what do I know? Definitely nothing about computers. The end. Just imagining this Karen coming up like, you're targeting me. And you're just like, huh, I don't know, it works on my computer. Seems to be working fine for everybody else too. Maybe it's your machine. Do you know much about computers? But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.